I wanted to provide some startup terms for you for the Arts 115 class. Aesthetics. Aesthetics is very unique and personal to you. It is what you find to be beautiful. It's what you're drawn to, what you find compelling. It can have inner beauty, a meaning to you, or outer beauty, like a flower or maybe a butterfly, where it's simply beautiful looking. For example, if I were to show you a picture of my grandmother, you may say, well, that's just an old woman. But to me, she has inner and outer beauty, and I find her appearance very aesthetic. Again, it is highly personal. I talk about the Vietnam Memorial because this was a very, very debatable memorial in its design when it was proposed. People questioned whether or not it was actually beautiful. It is a large granite V that you can walk along, where it increases in size to a midpoint and then decreases. On the surface of this black granite monument are the names of those who perished or are missing in the war. The intent of the architect, who was then an architect student, Myelin, was to show you the names of those who perished in the war and also reflect you, because you are what wars are fought for, your freedoms. You will see that a lot of times people will leave mementos behind if you were to ever visit this particular memorial. So this kind of brings us to this inner beauty and outer beauty. Sometimes when you know what something means, its sense of aesthetics can actually change. Subject or subject matter is the person, place, or thing. It applies to works that are representational or abstract, though you can certainly describe fact by fact a non-objective work. We will get to what those mean in just a couple of minutes. It is a detailed description of the facts of the work, the facts of what you see. It's void of an emotional reaction. It is rich in details. So imagine this. If we were standing in front of a work of art and I closed my eyes, how would you factually, item by item, describe it to me? That is subject matter. Media are the materials used to make a work of art. Watercolor on paper, oil on canvas, mixed media, meaning two or more things, and assemblage is a sculptural form where things that don't belong together are assembled together to make a single sculpture. Pencil on paper is media. Content is your emotional reaction. It's your physical, psychological reaction or your sensory reaction. Any one of these will do. Emotional, it makes me happy. Psychological, it gives me the creeps. Sensory, it makes me feel cold. It is the message that a work sends to you or how it makes you feel. Like aesthetics, this is highly personal. So I always talk about my husband and my honeymoon in London. We went to the Tate Modern in London and we looked at modern art. So here is Jean de Buffet's portrait of Henri Michaud, and it's oil and grit. That's the media on canvas. When I looked at this, I thought it was charming. When my husband looked at it, he thought it was ridiculous. Joseph Boy's Fat Battery, made by a war survivor who was dropped in enemy territory, nearly died from the cold elements, actually survived. So all of his work is about survival. When I explained this to my husband, he really struggled with this concept. Mixed media, meaning two or more things combined, it's felt, fat, tin, wood, and board. An unusual thing that we saw was Rebecca Horn's sculpture, which is an upside-down piano tethered to the ceiling of the Tate Modern Museum, and it's called Concert for Anarchy. It's mixed media. It's a piano and electronics. The lid opens and closes, and the keys come out on a timer. When it winds back into the piano, there are notes of discord that can be heard all throughout the entire museum. My husband was growing quite aggravated by the things that we were seeing. Cinder Block 8, the subject matter, it literally is X number of cinder blocks laid side by side on the gallery floor. The medium is cinder block. The title is equivalent 8. Andre always sought to use any kind of already existing material to make sculpture. My husband really struggled with this, but things hit a real head when we went to look at this particular sculpture, Marcel Duchamp's The Fountain, which is literally a urinal tilted on its side with black paint with the letters R.Mut. Duchamp would ask us, if I call it art, then is it art? Basic categories of art are representational. It seeks to mimic the real world very realistically. Some people substitute realism with that, but the proper name is representational. Abstract means that it's the rendering of images in a stylized or simplified way. In other words, it's distorted, but we still know what it is. And then non-objective contains the word right in it. It seeks to depict no object. It makes no reference to the real world. Frida Kahlo's portrait, her self-portrait here, is representational. It is very, very clear and very realistic the way that she has depicted herself and the foliage in her hair and also behind her. Kehinde Wiley's lone figure of a male with his arms crossed is also very, very realistic. Every detail is captured. This is representational, as well as Chuck Close's portrait, which in reality this portrait is 6 by 8 feet, roughly. Every pore, the freckle in the iris, are all captured in Close's work. They're very, very realistic in their depiction. So then they are representational. Abstract means the work is distorted. So here we have Willem de Kooning's Woman and Bicycle. We can see the attributes of a female, including the red lips and the wide eyes and large breasts. However, it is extremely distorted. That is abstraction. As is with Picasso's woodcut, where it looks like two figures are kissing, or maybe it's a single face. We can make out the eyes and the ears and the nose and the mouth and the hair, but it isn't realistic at all. But since we can still identify it, and it is distorted, it is abstracted. Non-objective takes abstraction all the way out to its furthest point, where it departs abstraction and then it references no object. This is the work of Piet Mondrian. He would argue that he is maybe looking at road maps or something like that. But in reality, these kind of works really base themselves on shape, line, color, and sometimes texture. They're not referencing anything real in life. Here is a Jackson Pollock. He would lay his canvas on the floor, and then he would spatter paint across the canvas, not attempting to make an image at all that relates to the real world. Interestingly, this work is called Autumn Song, but thinking about Autumn Song, it doesn't reference the month directly, and it doesn't reference a song directly. Therefore, since it is referencing no object, it is non-objective or non-representational. Two-dimensional art is flat. If you were to put your head against the wall and look at the work sideways, the surface would remain flat, even if the work were as representational as Kehinde Wiley's work. That work is still flat. It's all an illusion of 3 dimensions, so it is two-dimensional. Most paintings, photographs, or works on paper are two-dimensional. Three-dimensional means that the work has volume and mass. The added dimension is the actual depth. So think of Kehinde Wiley's lone figure, and now we have this bronze sculpture which takes up space. This takes up physical space. Other examples besides sculpture are ceramics and glass.